Imagine your mind and body as a sophisticated alarm system designed to keep you safe from danger. When you experience trauma, that system can get stuck in overdrive, constantly on alert, even when the threat has long passed. Today, we'll explore how trauma shapes our survival state and how memory, epigenetics, and interoception play a role. Most importantly, we'll see how understanding these processes can lead to true healing. Let's start with the basics. After a traumatic event, your internal alarm does its best to protect you by using three powerful forces: memory, epigenetics, and interoception. Think of memory as the emotional footprints left behind by past experiences. Epigenetics is how interpretations are passed down through generations. And interoception is your body's own internal communication system, the way you sense hunger, heartbeat, or unease from the inside out. When these forces combine, they create feedback loops that can keep you trapped in survival mode. It's a bit like having a smoke alarm that keeps going off, even when there's no smoke, constantly reminding you the world might not be safe. What actually happens in the brain during trauma? The analytical centers, the parts that process facts and logic, temporarily shut down. This means trauma isn't recorded as a tidy list of events. Instead, it's stored as a felt sense, as body sensations or physical tension. Society often expects survivors to provide clear, factual evidence. But when your brain records trauma as feelings rather than facts, details can be impossible. This mismatch can leave survivors feeling isolated or misunderstood, and it can reinforce the body's belief that the world is a dangerous place. Now, let's talk about epigenetics. This is about how emotions and interpretations of experiences can be passed down through families. If past generations have lived through hardship, their nervous systems may have adapted and encoded those survival strategies, which get handed on. Interoception, meanwhile, is the body's way of constantly checking in with itself, monitoring stress levels, heart rate, and gut feelings. Together, epigenetics and interoception shape what you see as safe or dangerous. They influence your priorities often without you being aware. But here's the good news: healing is possible. And it isn't about talking yourself out of fear or simply thinking positive thoughts. True healing relies on experiential evidence. This means providing your nervous system with real-life experiences that prove the present is different from the past. For example, a gentle touch, a safe environment, or a supportive relationship can slowly convince your body that it's okay to relax. It's not about proving the trauma happened. It's about gathering new evidence that safety is possible. Over time, these experiences rewire the survival state. Understanding these processes isn't just helpful for therapists, it's crucial for survivors. You can learn to negotiate with your own responses. You become an active participant in your own healing, not just a passenger. Remember, the journey out of survival mode starts with understanding, patience, and the courage to seek out new experiences of safety. You have the power to rewrite your story and step into a new state of being, one where calm, connection, and hope are possible.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening all, it's Bear here. And in today's video, this is part 2 following on from the last video where we were talking about the role that memory plays in the embedding of trauma responses, the cycles and loops that it creates that make trauma and our traumatic experiences resistant to therapeutic support and general help. These videos are around the awareness around this because memory plays a key role in one of the largest obstacles in all my practitioner years and advocacy years. It was one of the largest obstacles in getting a person to even accept the most basic support and help. because of the loops, the internal loops that it creates, because in our society, we are stuck in the perpetual need to prove what has happened. Otherwise, we're not seen that something has happened. And as I described in the last video, our memory when we're looking at trauma, the moment we step into heightened threat, higher brain function shuts down. So the analytical part of our brain shuts down. So the part of our brain that can work out the facts, that can give the details that people require, is turned off. And we're recording what we feel. And in this video, I want to step into that felt sense of what we feel. Where does it all come from, and how other factors feed into it? I've done several videos on epigenetics and the roles that it plays within our trauma response and generational trauma and the repetitive cycles of how trauma plays out in so many people's lives. When we're looking at interoception and internal neurological language, that internal way that we feel and how it affects not only our health and well-being, but how we interact and how we connect, they are all working together, feeding off each other. And when you look at complex trauma, when you're looking at early childhood trauma, very often create such a strong feedback loop that in modern societies, we have the reliance upon medication because of that loop. That loop where the felt sense is in so much turmoil, there is so much evidence that the world is a hostile environment, that a person will never get to a place where they will realistically entertain other points of view and other processes to try to bring the body out of a shutdown, to try to bring the body out of fight or flight, to try to bring the body out of survival. It is a very difficult and complex hurdle to get past. And I don't want to make it sound like it's impossible. But for me, if we can demystify as much as possible what creates it, in our own unique way, within our own unique circumstances, we can find the nuances to start to pry the cracks so that we can ourselves negotiate with our survival state to allow those that we choose to help us move out of it a little more each time. When you look at epigenetics, now if primarily our memory records our experiences, what we feel, common sense shows that what's passed on generationally is feelings, interpretations of feelings, the way the body, the interoception processes, the coding within all the structures of our body that allow us to physically feel things. That is what's being passed on epigenetically. When we're looking at the breadth of how feelings can be triggered, it makes perfect sense that epigenetics and memory have pivotal roles in working together in how we feel. When you look at the evidence, observable evidence, when in any areas where generational trauma is common, any of the lower socioeconomic areas in indigenous populations where great harm has been done, in war-torn areas where wars have been fought generationally, you can clearly see the replication of trauma environments being replicated over and over again. And the process for this is because a person's nervous system, a society's collective nervous system, is taught generationally that this is all there is. And if we all group work together to go, this is all there is, this is what we're going to create. When you look at the family violence cycles from generation to generation, you see these play out all the time. And so much of our own first experiences where we can have the support to be able to get out gets blocked because those first threat experiences play into generationally what we've inherited. And we very quickly become overwhelmed. It increases the debilitation of how trauma plays out within a person's body and a person's neurophysiology. But it also embeds a resistance to being open to other perspectives, to seeking the kind of help we're going to need, and to be open to the suggestions and not feel so threatened by the suggestions that are going to challenge what we are doing and the things we need to change so that we can move forward and out of survival. When you start to really see and recognize, when you start to comprehend the interplay between memory, epigenetics, and interoception, when you start to understand that this interplay is what shapes your survival priorities, the priorities that you require, the evidence that you require to be able to step into a neutral place, to be able to discuss options, to be open to, co-regulation with others, to be able to be open to creating a pathway to the experiences that you're going to need to provide the evidence to be able to shift out of such an embedded place of survival. When you start to see this and demystify it, it becomes clear the steps that you can take yourself and what you need to bring in to be able to be open to stepping into a more neutral stance in the initial stages and interactions within therapeutic support, or just getting help and support from somebody close to you. If you understand that epigenetics is recorded memory of experiences, and if all those experiences are repeated cycles of the same, trauma experiences you're experiencing, and the same environment that you're surviving in, where the threat is constant, then you know that you're going to need a fair bit of experiential evidence to prove to your nervous system and yourself otherwise. So moving past the validation side of I'm feeling this because to where, okay, what do I need to experience to prove to me that there are better things out there is a very powerful place to be in. By understanding your own triage list of priorities created through your survival, and at the core of those, if you go back to your very early childhood, will be what defines safe, what you need to open the door to learning what safe actually is. Takes years away of explanation, rationalization, and proof. And it takes it down to, okay, this is what I'm going to need to create. And if you're stepping into a therapeutic process and your initial discussions with the therapist, you go, okay, I'm coming from a deficit base of this. And for me to feel safe enough to go into the neutral ground that you're putting forward, we need to find a way to work together to provide enough evidence of this for my nervous system to allow this to move forward. And if a practitioner is willing to work with you to do that, awesome, stay with it. If a practitioner goes, no, the book says, oh, we need to work this. No, I feel you need to do that. It's not that the practitioner is wrong. It's just that practitioner is not right for you. It's moving past the reinforcement and the continued reinforcement of having to prove what we've gone through. It's moving past the continued reinforcement of having to justify and rationalize what we've been through so that we can accept anything from somebody else. Another area where I see this play out so often is where a person will demean themselves to try to get help because they know and believe inside themselves, their identity that's been created through their experiences, that is all they're worth. But then any help that they receive in that state is just reinforcing their trauma response and their need for survival. Healing trauma in reality is we need to have the experiences to provide the level of evidence that our entire physiology needs to move out of the state that was created by our threat, by our trauma responses to what happened to us. And if we understand the interplay between epigenetics and memory, gives us a large step forward into the types of experiences and evidence we're going to need. And if we focus our efforts, our mindset, and our resources to the pursuit of gathering that evidence, having those experiences, not wasting so much time on all this verbal stuff, but looking at how can I have the experiences that I'm going to need to be able to move past and teach my nervous system That the environment I experienced back then is not the environment that is before me now. If we can get to that place, to that internal belief, we ourselves can start to bring in what we need to make the changes we're going to need to finally free ourselves from survival and threat. Demystifying is at the heart of, I believe, is at the heart of how we are going to heal from trauma. Because we're the ones living in our body 24/7. The people we go to may be an hour here or there. We're the ones that are going to need to work on how we explain and ask for help. We are the ones that are going to need to work on how we're going to accept the help. All those negotiations, if we demystify what's going on within us, gives us the clarity to be able to define those negotiations. And again, not have them feed into the validation loop, the threat prediction loop, or the constant inherited felt sense reminder that everything is a threat loop. And it can help us finally start to step into a neutral place, a more neutral place, to bring in the experiences, to support our nervous system, to relearn that there's more to the world than just the threat we've inherited and the threat we've experienced. To create the gray areas and the nuances and work with those gray areas and nuances to bring in the experiences that will finally provide the evidence that our physiology needs to step out of survival, to process the traumatic experiences we've gone through into a long-term memory, and to reduce the links between what we felt back then and what we are feeling now and the feelings that we're experiencing now. To have a safeguard gap or, an analytical block or a way of going, no, catching yourself. No, I'm not under threat. This is just something that's heightened. This is excitement. This is not danger. This is over the top laughter, not I'm choking or suffocating. There's all these things that we can do to have the experiences we need to re-regulate our nervous system to enjoy and participate in life. But the first big hurdle is we need to demystify and understand what is going on, because we're the ones that are going to have to do it. As always, I love you guys' comments and feedback. Please be mindful, please be safe, and please understand the importance of all of this. Stay safe, and I will see you all next time.